All right, guys. I got a couple requests for some questions from the homework assignment that you'll turn in over iLearn, but also it's available on Top Hat. So the question that I usually get the most requests for is a question like the one on number 15. So on question 15, you're given a couple pieces of information about the housing market, and then you're asked to show where the equilibrium started and where the equilibrium ended. So one of the things that's interesting about this is that you're also given a graph that says here's a couple supply and demand curves that say, yeah, it's something that looks like this, all right? And we've got demand with a squiggly line above it, that's a tilde, and a demand hat, and then we've got a supply hat and a supply tilde, right? And then you're told you've got a point A here, you've got an equilibrium at point B, you've got an equilibrium down here at C, and then an equilibrium here at E, right? And the question asks you to figure out which equilibrium you start at and which equilibrium you end at. Now, the trick to answering this question correctly is to actually not really look at these points A, B, C, and E, because that can kind of lead you down a bad path. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. But if we look at the question, we're told that the tax rate for homeowners in California in particular is going to decrease, and then the government lowers taxes for developers. Okay, so we've got kind of two things happening in the housing market, and if you try to focus on this particular graph right here, it's really easy to get lost and say, I'm not really sure where I started or where I ended. So here's how I'd approach this. First, just put yourself in equilibrium again. All right, so start over here. We've got a demand curve. We've got a supply curve. Here, go ahead and label it demand 1, supply 1. Okay, you're told the tax rate for homeowners goes down. So that means that any homeowner is going to have to pay a lower amount in taxes if they buy a home. So what's that going to do to the demand for homes? That's going to increase the demand for homes. So we can write that in red here and say the demand curve is going to shift up, and I'm going to make this a dash 2 just to make sure that we stay kind of on point here. Okay, so demand goes up, put an arrow there, because homeowner taxes go down, right? So owning a home becomes less expensive than it used to be. Okay, another thing that happens is that the government lowers taxes for developers. So clearly they're just wanting people to own homes and build homes. So if developers don't have to pay as much in taxes anymore, what is this going to do? This is going to increase supply. So now our supply curve is going to shift to the right. Okay, so we can just go ahead and put an arrow there. So if we think about the equilibrium we started at and the equilibrium we ended at, right, all we're doing is we're saying we started here at this equilibrium of where D1 and S1 intersect. Just call it E1, all right? So we got E1 there, and then we've got this increase in demand, this increase in supply. Where's the new equilibrium? Well, it's right there where these two dashed lines cross, or the red line and the blue line. Now we're here at E2. So we go from E1 to E2. Then when you're answering this question, all you have to do is look at the reference graph and say, well, if I moved from E1 to E2, that's the same thing as moving from E to A. Don't let this notation for demand or supply get you off on a bad path. Tell yourself, I know what's going on with the demand and the supply curve in this market. I'm going to show it on this graph. All you're doing is you're just then transferring those equilibrium changes to this reference graph. All right, hope that helps. Good luck. We'll see you guys in the next question.